She stood at the mic like she owned the building. Hell, maybe she thought she did. New VP, loud heels, sharper tongue. Effective immediately, she said, pacing like a TED Talk dropout. All proprietary tech is now internal IP, no exceptions. Then she looked right at me, smiled, that smug kind of smile you'd slap off a billboard. Even if you wrote it, she said, it's company property now. You ever feel your heart slow down instead of speed up, like a metronome hitting war tempo in reverse? That was me, because I wasn't shocked. I wasn't scared. I was clocking it. Every syllable, every smug flick of her hair, every idiot in that room laughing nervously like we were watching corporate stand-up instead of a legal landmine go off in real time. If you're listening to this and haven't already, hit the subscribe button and tap the like. It helps way more than you'd think and keeps this story alive for the next one. Now, back to that VP and the fire she just walked into barefoot. Thing is, I didn't rise through the company by waving around buzzwords and Canva decks. I built the core. Quietly. While others chased promotions, I chased integrity and syntax. My code didn't just run systems. It held them together when everything else collapsed. During the 2022 supply chain mess, while the suits were panic ordering espresso and shipping delays were nuking our margins, I was pitching a solution. Real-time exception mapping, predictive rerouting, cold chain compliance that didn't just tick a box, it prevented lawsuits. I didn't build it on company time, I built it on mine. Nights, weekends, with my dog curled up beside me and a coffee gone cold on the windowsill. And when it worked, when it actually saved us from losing 3 major clients, I did the right thing, filed a patent through my LLC, PulseNetics Solutions, patent number 99124C. Then I licensed it to Orion, non-exclusive, 5-year term, clearly outlined. I had it signed by Greg Thomas, our old COO, the only executive I ever trusted to read past page 1 of a contract. So when this shiny new VP tried to claim it as hers, I didn't panic. I packed my desk, quietly, slid my badge into a drawer, and as I stood, I said one line, just one. Actually, it's patent number 99124C, licensed, independently held. She blinked like I just quoted Latin. Then she laughed, out loud. The kind of laugh people do right before they realize the house isn't theirs. It's rented and the landlord's knocking. Let me rewind. My name's Shay Keller. I was senior systems architect at Orion Systems, San Diego born, code raised. If it had a server, I could tune it. If it had a signature, I could trace it. And if it had a loophole, I could close it before you even knew it was there. I didn't build Orion Pulse to be flashy. I built it to be functional, a living, breathing, predictive layer atop logistics chaos. Everything from inventory to temperature sensors to satellite-linked reroute protocols. When it launched, revenue jumped, churn dropped, customer trust hit all-time highs. Suddenly, we weren't just some flashy West Coast firm anymore. We were essential. Quietly, because I never asked for credit, not until someone tried to take it. I kept receipts. Every line of code, every contract revision, every time-stamped merge, and yes, every time someone forgot, the code was licensed. The PulseNetics framework was clean, modular, and intentionally isolated, because I knew the day would come when some MBA with loud shoes and louder opinions would try to own it without earning it. So I made sure no one could. And now, here we were. She made her announcement, declared her theft, on record. In a meeting with external vendors and multiple department heads, I didn't even need a lawyer to tell me it was done. I just needed a copy of the recording, which I had within an hour. You know what they say? Don't swing unless you know what bat you're holding. Elena Drayton walked in with a plastic wiffle bat and thought she was Babe Ruth. Meanwhile, I'd been holding a patent, an 8 years' worth of documented silence. That's the funny thing about people like her. They think the quiet ones are weak, passive, replaceable. But all silence means is that I was documenting everything. And now it was time for the rest of the world to see it. Elena Drayton entered the office like she'd already solved us. You could tell she wasn't here to learn. She was here to conquer. Long blazer, perfect posture, a headset she never used but wore like a crown. She carried herself like this place was a fixer-upper and we were just the faded wallpaper she'd peel back to find something usable. Her second day, she called a walkthrough of legacy systems. Code review with 10 people, 2 of whom actually understood what they were looking at. She stood behind me as I explained how PulseNetics interfaced with Orion's data lake. "That's confusing," she said, loud enough for the group. "It's not intuitive, and the modulars seem Proprietary. I turned in my chair slowly. They are? Meaning? Meaning they're licensed. Backend architecture is owned by Pulsenetics Solutions. It's not Orion IP. She gave a little head tilt like she'd just found a dead pixel on her news screen. Right. Let's flag that. We'll want to streamline. That was week 1. Week 2, she asked for my source access. Just for visibility, she claimed. Need to know what we're paying for. I told her visibility wasn't the problem. Respect for contracts was. She laughed, shook her head like I was being difficult. You're protective of your code. That's cute. No, I wasn't being cute. I was being legal. That Friday, I got the email from legal. Subject line, Code Authorship Clarification. Classic middle manager CYA. The kind of email you send when someone in power wants to do something reckless, and you want it on record that you asked the right questions before it blew up. I opened my folder, labeled Pre-Drayton because I'm not an idiot, and attached the license agreement. Pulsenetics Solutions, 5-year term, signed by Gregory A. Thomas, former COO. Dated, notarized, timestamped with an accompanying breakdown of the modules and use rights. No exclusivity, no transfer of ownership, just licensing. Then I replied with 2 lines. Per Section 4, ownership remains with Pulsenetics. Let me know if you need the UPTO record, patent number 99124C. And I CC'd myself on my personal email, because I knew what was coming. People like Elena don't back down when they're wrong. They double down, then triple down, then look for someone else to blame when the fire reaches the gas line. The next day, I came in early. Quiet office. No buzz, no coffee brewing, just the low hum of servers and the startup screen on my laptop. I opened the terminal, cloned the entire Pulsenetics repo onto an encrypted drive, and ran a diff audit on recent commits. No unauthorized changes, yet. But I also backed up the Slack threads. Every meeting invite, every email, file log, and time-stamped deployment. I even screen recorded her legacy systems comment from our last Zoom sync and saved it to a folder named If They Push. Because here's the truth, no one tells you about being a quiet engineer in a loud corporate world. Documentation isn't a habit, it's a weapon. People like Elena, MBA wolves, and Reformation blazers, they rely on the speed of power. They talk fast, move fast, rewrite faster, but they don't know how long it takes to build a system. They don't know what it costs to make something stable, and they sure as hell don't care who wrote it unless that person gets in their way, which I now officially was. The weird part? I wasn't even mad. Not yet. You get to a point in your career where being underestimated isn't an insult anymore. It's a forecast. You just start planning around the weather. That weekend, I didn't sleep much. My stomach knew before my brain did. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw repo logs and code windows. I'd built Pulsenetics with intention, modular by design, clean separation between Orion's interface and my patented backend. But if they decided to start poking around under the hood, that would be breach. And if they copied any part of that backend into core Orion systems, that would be war. By Sunday night, I got the GitHub ping. User Orion Dev03 requested access to private module LightNet Pulsenetics exception mapping core. I didn't approve it, I just took a screenshot. Monday was going to be long. And loud. For them. They gave her a standing mic like she was delivering closing remarks at Davos instead of hijacking a Tuesday staff call. Elena strode to the front of the room with her designer blazer, a smile pulled so tight it could have sliced drywall. The monitors behind her displayed the Orion logo cycling through slides no one had asked for. No agenda, no memo, just a calendar placeholder, company alignment and vision. She tapped the mic like she was warming up for open mic night at a VC pitch fest. Thanks for joining, everyone. Just a quick note on system integration. I already knew. The minute she bypassed IT and added herself as admin on 2 of our internal dashboards, one of which had Pulsenetics logs embedded, I knew this wasn't a drill. It was a land grab. We've reviewed our technical stack and made a strategic decision to consolidate IP under the Orion umbrella moving forward. All proprietary tech is now considered internal IP. My hands froze on the keys. Not shocked, not rattled, just measuring her. She didn't stop. No exceptions, she said, scanning the room like she was making eye contact with every future pink slip. Then her eyes locked on mine. Even if you wrote it, it's company property now. There was a pause. Not silence, just that awkward kind of shift where everyone chuckles, then looks around to make sure it's okay, they laughed. Like someone farted in church and no one knows whether to bless it or bury it. I didn't laugh. I didn't even blink. Instead, I did the most dangerous thing a developer can do in a room full of people who don't understand what they're about to steal. I closed my laptop, slowly, gently, like it was a finished chapter. The leather bag beside me had been packed before the meeting, not out of drama, out of foresight. Because when you spend 8 years documenting everything you build, you learn to recognize the moment your work becomes more valuable than your presence. I stood, smoothed the crease on my blazer, and looked straight at her. Actually, I said, it's patent number 99124C, licensed, independently held. Elena blinked, just once, like a glitch. Then she laughed, not out of humor, out of fear disguised as arrogance. Sure it is, she said, with a smirk you could paint on the side of a sinking ship and still call it hopeful. I didn't explain, didn't raise my voice, didn't ask for backup. I just walked. Every footstep across that cheap carpet was quiet, but it might as well have been thunder in a boardroom full of people who'd suddenly forgotten what Clause 4.1a of our vendor agreement meant. I could feel the temperature drop behind me, the slow realization sinking in like water through insulation. Because here's what none of them understood. When you license architecture from someone who also holds the patent, when you deploy that architecture into your client environments, when your new VP stands up and claims it as company property on a recorded Zoom call with 3 of our federal logistics partners in attendance, you're not just wrong, you're exposed. I took the back stairwell, always did. It was faster, quieter, and it avoided the show. My car keys were in my hand before I hit the 3rd floor. No one followed me, not that day. I drove home with the windows down. The sun was out, and San Diego was doing that fake spring thing where it pretends it has seasons. I let the breeze hit my face, let the tension bleed off, because I wasn't coming back, not to that building, not under that leadership, not with those ethics. The code was still mine, the patent was still active, and Elena Drayton had just publicly committed corporate malpractice with a smile and a microphone. Let them laugh. They wouldn't be for long. Marcus Trent wasn't a bad lawyer, he was just a comfortable one. The kind that skated through the gray zones of corporate law by drinking from the same mug every morning, keeping his desk clutter-free, and pretending contracts were guardrails instead of landmines. But when his Slack lit up at 11:43 a.m. with a clipped message from the CTO, "Hey, quick question, who owns Pulsenetics?" He sat a little straighter in his leather chair. By noon, he was staring at the USPTO database, fingers hovering over the keyboard like he already knew he wasn't going to like what he found. Search. Patent number 99124C. Result. Pulsenetics Solutions, LLC. Owner, R. Colin Walker. Filed, 2024-0208. Approved, 2025-0103. Status, active, enforceable. He exhaled, sat back, rubbed the bridge of his nose. R. Colin Walker wasn't just a name in the records. He was the lead systems architect for Orion's logistics framework until about 45 minutes ago. Now he was the plaintiff in waiting for one of the most clear-cut IP violations Marcus had ever seen. He opened the legal archive, fingers stiff. Greg Thomas's old license agreement was buried in the 2021 folder, digital signature and timestamp intact. Marcus read the first page, then the second, then the clause that mattered most. All rights and ownership retained by Pulsenetics Solutions. License term 5 years. No modification or replication permitted without express written consent from the owner. His stomach sank. Still active. Still valid. And less than 3 hours ago, Elena Drayton had stood in front of 60 employees, plus 3 remote partners on Zoom, and declared out loud that all proprietary tech is now internal IP, even if you wrote it. Marcus clicked through to the meeting recording. Zoom had already uploaded it to the internal archive. He watched her say it again, that same confident tone, that same look she gave Colin across the room. He watched Colin stand, calmly state the patent number, and walk out like the ending had already been written. The external partners had been in the call. 2 from Redline Freight, 1 from US Foods. All silent witnesses to a public declaration of theft. He scrubbed back to the moment again, just to be sure. At timestamp 4812, she said it clearly. Even if you wrote it, it's company property now. Jesus. He tapped out a message to Elena. She was offline. He checked its version control logs. The Pulsenetics code branches had seen activity, not just read access. Someone had tried to fork one into a new build directory. His phone buzzed. Call from Chief Risk Officer Celine Yao. He let it ring once, twice, then picked up. I'm looking at the license agreement, Celine said flatly. And the USPTO entry, this wasn't internal IP. I know. Tell me we didn't just claim it was. He didn't answer. Tell me we didn't do that, she said again, quieter now, on a recorded call. He opened the Zoom window and watched it play again. Elena's smile, the room's uneasy laughter, Colin's measured response. And then, a few lines later, her laughing dismissal. Sure it is. He felt sick. This is a misclassification, he said finally, which was lawyer for we are royally screwed and can't say it out loud yet. No, Celine replied. A misclassification is an accounting error. This is declaration of ownership over federally registered intellectual property. She hung up. Marcus leaned back, cracked his knuckles, and opened a new internal memo draft. He wasn't writing to legal anymore. He was writing to PR. Crisis prep. Because someone was going to leak that recording, and when they did, we misunderstood the contract wasn't going to cover it. The thing about patent law, there's no room for interpretation when the ink's dry and the timestamps line up. And now they did. Colin's name wasn't just in a footer, it was printed on federal paper. And Marcus Trent was about to find out how quickly a joke in an all hands could become Exhibit A. By the time I pulled into my driveway that afternoon, the repo had already been touched. I didn't need access logs to tell me. My phone had pinged. 3 alerts, GitHub flags tied to the Pulsenetics audit bot I'd quietly installed 6 months ago. Not even Orion's sysadmin team knew it was running. But I did. Because I knew what this company was capable of the minute our former CTO started replacing engineers with automation consultants and pushing legacy teams toward early retirement. I sat in the car with the engine idling and scrolled through the commit history. The branch that held the proprietary core, exception mapping, temperature failover, the backbone of the compliance module, had been forked, then updated again. 3 commits, all from the same user, DevOps Elena02. No review, no PR approval, no sign-off. They didn't just open the hood. They started driving the car. I forwarded the commit logs to my lawyer, Samir. 10 minutes later, he replied with 1 sentence and a scanned attachment. This is breach. Stop all communication. We're moving to notice. The attachment was a formal letter. Notification of violation. U.S. Copyright Pertar 506A. Title 17. Unlicensed derivative use. Language like willful infringement, statutory damages, injunctive relief. I barely finished reading it before my phone buzzed again, this time from an old friend still in IT. Shay, he texted. They're panicking. Elena's trying to retro-lock all admin branches. Marcus wants NDAs reissued post-dated to March. They're saying it's a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? They pushed code, 3 layers deep, into a production-adjacent environment. I pulled up the audit thread from the bot. Clean screenshots of every action taken, file edits, permission overrides, user activity logs. They'd even renamed a Pulsenetics class to make it look internal. As if the law cared about font changes and naming conventions. It wasn't just reckless, it was criminally stupid. I messaged Samir again. They're scrubbing the repo, trying to cover tracks. He responded instantly. Good, let them. Tampering post-breach increases the penalty. Keep logging, don't engage. So I let the bot run. Meanwhile, legal fired off a flood of documents trying to rewrite history. Retroactive NDAs with vague phrases like past work product, contractual integration, reclassified IP rights. All meaningless. You can't sign away ownership after you've already broken it. That's not legal cover. It's evidence. One document even attempted to assert that my work while employed at Orion Systems constitutes collective intellectual property. They tried to backdate it. February. I wasn't even mad. I was impressed by the speed of their desperation. The next morning, I received a message from a junior developer I'd mentored 2 years prior. She was quiet, smart, the kind of engineer who reads licenses before they copy-paste from Stack Overflow. She'd seen the commit history and knew what it meant. I don't want to be part of this, she wrote. They told us it was just cleanup, but Elena pushed it directly into the logistics engine, with your code still tagged. I replied with one line, "Keep the email, keep the logs, you may need them." Because here's what was really unraveling. This wasn't just about me anymore. They hadn't just violated a license. They'd involved employees in unknowing IP theft, compromised client-facing systems with unvetted code, created a compliance risk trail that now touched multiple departments. When you tamper with protected architecture, you don't just violate patent law, you invite the federal government to your front door. And Orion had just opened every lock in the house. Thursday, 9:41 a.m. The audit report hit my inbox with a subject line that told me everything before I even opened the file. Violations identified, 43 matches. I didn't flinch. I'd been expecting this. My audit bot had been scraping every push and merge from the moment they touched PulseNetics code without consent. But expecting something and seeing it, line by line, violation by violation, that hits different. Each match was marked in red. Source, patented PulseNetics module. Destination, Orion Core Logistics Engine v7.1. Modifications, superficial, variable names, comment wipes, file structure shuffles. Effectiveness, none. They didn't even try to hide it properly. It was textbook, change the label, steal the wine energy. Like spray painting your name on a Picasso and thinking that made it yours. Samir had the full logs before I could even forward them. He called 2 minutes later, didn't even say hello. 43 individual acts, and that's just from this week. Do you understand what that means? I did. Under U.S. Code Title 17, specifically a U.S. Sanyisi 404C2, willful infringement carries statutory damages up to $150,000 per act. 43 triggers. You do the math. Send the package, I said quietly. He already had. Southern District of California, Intellectual Property and Digital Crimes Division. Full repository logs, timestamped screenshots, license agreements, audit trails, and Zoom call excerpts. And right at the top, Elena Drayton's quote, "Even if you wrote it, it's company property now." My lawyer's brief broke it down like a script for federal theater. Unlawful use of federally patented software. Unauthorized derivative work creation. Attempted retroactive NDAs, internal cover-up through repository tampering, external misrepresentation to third-party clients, and then the kicker, Appendix D, side-by-side code comparison, PulseNetics module versus Orion Logistics Engine v7.1, identical logic structures, identical dependencies, identical exception routines. They didn't just borrow my architecture, they rewrote the house numbers and tried to sell it as beachfront. I sat at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee and scrolled through the evidence like I was reading a novel I already knew the ending to. The quiet part, the part no one sees, is how many times I could have spoken up before now. How many times I could have emailed Marcus or filed an internal complaint or thrown a fit in the all hands. But I didn't, because there's a difference between proving your point and letting someone else hang themselves with the rope they swore was a ladder. Elena hadn't just violated a license. She'd constructed a fraud machine, unwittingly or not, that now sat inside every client deployment package Orion had pushed in the last 6 weeks. That's the thing about logistics platforms. They don't stay internal, they go live. They sync with government vendors. They feed regulatory audit trails. They're embedded in systems the Department of Agriculture, the FDA, and the DoD monitor for traceability compliance. And now the audit logs were federal evidence. The code was in the wild, and Elena Drayton was the last person who should have ever touched it. Samir's next message came in with a PDF attachment. Notice of intent to file. IP breach and fraudulent misrepresentation. He added one line beneath it. They thought it was optimization. Now it's organized crime. I stared at it for a moment, then saved it to a new folder, Orion. Case file subfolder, ongoing damages, because this wasn't over. This was the middle. Friday morning, 8:07 a.m., a courier arrived at Orion's front desk holding a plain white envelope marked certified, time-sensitive. The receptionist signed with a trembling hand. Word had already started to trickle down from IT that something big was brewing. She placed the envelope on a desk meant for flowers and vendor samples. This one wasn't sweet. It reeked of consequence. The return address wasn't mine. It was my counsel's. Southern District format. Blue stamp. Inside, notice of intent to file, intellectual property violation and license breach, section headers in bold, clauses cited, a thick paper trail of everything they'd touched without consent, committed without clearance and scrubbed without legal authority. By 10:32 a.m., Elena had activated DEFCON levels of damage control. Pure legal IT, all yanked into the executive response pod, a glass-walled conference room we once used to impress visiting clients with our transparency culture. Now the blinds were drawn and the hallway chatter had gone whisper silent. She tried to call, not through legal, not through proper channels, direct to my cell. 4 missed calls, 2 voicemails, then a text that started like a TED Talk and ended like a bribe. Shay, let's realign. Happy to discuss revised licensing terms. We value your innovation and want to explore a formal collaboration path moving forward. That wasn't a collaboration. That was a last-ditch plea with corporate perfume sprayed over panic. Another text came 5 minutes later. We're open to discussing rejoining the team under elevated leadership terms. I'll backdate equity. She was offering a throne in a castle that didn't exist anymore. I didn't reply. Samir did. All future communication must go through counsel. Per Section 7B of the existing agreement, Ms. Keller is under no obligation to engage post-violation. Translation. You had your chance. You blew past it in heels and a wireless clicker. Then, at 11:06 a.m., something strange happened. Elena's Slack went dark. Not paused, not offline, deactivated. Her name disappeared from active threads. Shared files she'd uploaded turned gray with an error message. This content is no longer available. Inside the war room, her voice went quiet mid-sentence as she stared at her laptop. Witnesses later said she blinked 3 times, typed something, frowned, then slowly closed the screen without a word. That's how the system handles a breach from the inside. They don't send flowers, they pull the cord. The CTO left the room next. Pale, shaken, he made a phone call and muttered something about compliance exposure, then retreated to his office with the blinds shut so tightly you'd think daylight itself had a subpoena. I started wiping build histories, trying to isolate the PulseNetics modules. But they couldn't, because PulseNetics wasn't just a plugin, it was foundational. Threads of it ran through temperature compliance, inventory variance alerts, carrier reroute logic, and cross-system encryption checks. Removing it wasn't surgery, it was amputation. At 2:17 p.m., a private Slack channel was created by legal Pulse licensing review users, legal at Council 1, legal and Council 2, compliance auditor 3 topic, damage assessment, IP breach triggers, and timeline. They didn't invite Elena. The same woman who'd announced with a smirk that all proprietary tech is now internal IP was now locked out of the very system she claimed to own. I didn't watch it happen, didn't refresh LinkedIn, didn't eavesdrop on chats from former coworkers, didn't drive by the office to see who was crying in the parking lot, because silence is its own answer. And right now, mine was saying everything it needed to. They tried to take ownership. What they got instead was notice. Monday, 8:57 a.m., the executive floor was unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that comes before a lightning strike. The board was deep into a strategic outlook session, huddled behind glass, sipping cold-pressed smugness and arguing over Q3 market signals like any of it would matter in an hour. Then the elevator chimed. 3 men stepped out, dark suits, badges already visible, no hesitation, no announcement. They moved with the kind of precision that makes even the cockiest executives sit a little straighter without knowing why. U.S. Marshals. They bypassed reception, walked directly to the boardroom, and opened the glass door mid-sentence. Elena had just finished presenting a slide titled Unified Architecture Rollout, Post-Consolidation Timeline. She was smiling, gesturing confidently toward a chart she didn't understand. 2 board members were nodding, the kind of nod reserved for buzzwords and plausible deniability. The lead marshal lifted a folder, thick, clipped, labeled. Subpoena, he said. Southern District of California, Federal IP investigation. The silence was instant. Everyone stopped breathing at the same time. Elena blinked, then laughed, sharp and performative, like she thought she could outpace reality with volume. This is ridiculous, she snapped. This has already been clarified. We're reviewing everything internally. The marshal didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled a printout from the folder, turned it toward her, highlighted in yellow at the top. Patent number 99124C, PulseNetics Solutions. Below it, pages of code comparisons, server logs, audit trails, access violations, timestamps, screenshots, Slack messages, even a screenshot from the Zoom all hands timestamped at 48:12 with the closed caption caught mid-sentence. Even if you wrote it, it's company property now. He didn't raise his voice. It's not. Elena opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked around the room like someone would stand up and defend her. No one moved. Not PR, not legal, not the CTO. The marshals flanked her gently. No cuffs, no scene, just presence. She was escorted out through the glass doors she once strolled through like a queen. One of her heels clicked awkwardly on the tile as she caught her footing. No one followed. The door closed behind her with a whisper. For a long moment, no one spoke. You could hear the Hevak hum, the gentle tap of a coffee mug being set down too quietly. Then someone, an outside board member, pale and sweating, finally leaned over and asked the question that would define the entire fallout. Did we really try to steal federal IP? The CEO didn't answer. He just stared at the closed door. Across the room, Marcus Trent, the general counsel who once skimmed my license agreement like it was a formality, sank back into his chair with the look of a man realizing he wasn't holding a contract. He was holding Exhibit B. The marshals didn't just seize Elena's laptop. They took server snapshots, downloaded deployment histories, cloned the DevOps backend. They logged every IP, every forked branch, every attempt to rename Exception Handler v3 into Logistics Predictor APX. This wasn't a takedown. It was an excavation. They didn't ask for cooperation. They arrived with proof. By 10:15 a.m., the Slack channel Hantar Pulse licensing review had been archived. It was told to stand by for system isolation procedures. External counsel was called. 3 execs left the building for off-site meetings and never returned. And me? I watched from a beachside cafe, laptop open, audit bot still humming quietly in the background. I stirred my coffee, closed the live stream, and smiled. They thought silence meant absence. Turns out, it meant observation. And now, the system was responding. 2 weeks later, Orion's homepage changed, quietly, unceremoniously, the banner that once boasted Unified Intelligence Proprietary Power now featured a beige placeholder. We're evolving. Please excuse the transition. Their press release dropped that same morning. 4 lines, all corporate fluff. Orion Systems announces operational realignment. An interim VP of operations has been appointed. The company remains committed to innovation, compliance, and partner trust. Not a single mention of Elena Drayton. She didn't resign. She didn't pursue new opportunities. She vanished, scrubbed from the leadership page like she'd never existed. LinkedIn, locked, bio, archived, Whisper networks, on fire. Inside sources said the board meeting where it all went down lasted 17 minutes. She showed up in a charcoal suit, walked in with legal, walked out alone. They say the only words she spoke were, "Is this final?" The board chair replied, "We're not here to negotiate." The settlement terms were 7 figures, paid over 2 quarters, no NDA, my condition. They wanted silence. I gave them structure. Orion formally ceased all use of Pulsenetics code. Every instance, every deployment, every build with so much as a single license thread was pulled, scrubbed, or hard isolated with chain of custody documentation. They re-signed the license. Triple the rate. Strict audit triggers. No modification rights, no extensions without written notice, and a 60-day review period, mine to approve. Internal memos referred to it as the Keller Protocol, as if giving it a name would help them forget they tried to cheat the person who built their house. I didn't gloat, didn't tweet, didn't send a single "told you so," because the win wasn't loud, it was permanent. 2 months later, at the West Coast Innovator Summit, I was asked to speak on a panel. Not about startups, not about fundraising, about ownership, the quiet, legal kind that outlasts every headline. The panel was called Respecting Founders IP. I wore a plain navy blazer, no company logo, no PR handler hovering behind me, just me, my notes, and a single slide I saved for last. It was black text on a white background. No font tricks, just a sentence I've lived by for years. Don't assume silence means surrender. It often means documentation. The room went still. A woman in the front row, probably another engineer, nodded slowly. A man in a navy suit stared like he'd just remembered every intern he ever dismissed. I stepped off the stage and walked past 3 CEOs I'd once pitched Pulsenetics to. Each of them had passed on it. Said it was too niche, now they licensed it. On my terms. I stopped at the back of the room where a small name card waited on a reserved seat. Shay Keller, founder, Pulsenetics Solutions. I didn't sit. I'd already arrived.